So this is the third of the Friday morning sessions on making buildings better. My name is Len Scherer. I'm an architect. I live in Evanston, and I'm the moderator. So same as the other sessions, we'll probably do about 40 minutes of presentation, maybe a little less with questions after that. Again, if you do have questions, put them into the questions pane, not the chat. I mean, we can see both, but it's just easier if they're in the questions pane. Okay, so our presenters, we have three presenters today. One is, we have Nathan, Dick, and Sylvia. Nathan Kipnis, he's an architect I've known for many years. He's a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. He's a principal of his own firm, Kipnis Architecture and Planning, been in Evanston for many years, and then a satellite office in Boulder. I'm not sure which city he likes better. We can ask him. He was a founding member of the Citizens for Greener Evanston group a couple of years ago. He's worked on the energy task group for CGE. He was involved in the offshore wind farm, if you guys remember that, a couple of years back. He's also involved in the AIA, the American Institute of Architects, national sort of program that encourages design firms to go to zero. It's called the 2030 Commitment. And he's also involved with Passive House, Next House Alliance, that focuses on net zero and resilient and healthy homes. Dick is got a PhD, so I guess he's Dr. T, is a co-founder and worker owner of the Evanston Development Cooperative, a community-owned worker cooperative that designs and builds energy efficiency accessory dwelling units for Evanston homeowners and residents. Prior to the Evanston Development Cooperative, Dr. Coe was a chemistry professor at Northwestern University for nearly 10 years and faculty director of the award-winning House by Northwestern program for the U.S. Department of Energy Solar Decathlon 2017 international competition. Which, by the way, the Department of Energy just announced the 2021 Solar Decathlon winners, and there's a whole series on pretty innovative technologies for net zero small houses. I haven't even had a chance to watch it all, but the couple snippets I saw were pretty cool. The Solar Decathlon is a pretty cool event overall. Our third presenter, Sylvia Wooller, is a founder and director of Remake Architecture, also in Evanston. Her work spans the design of eco-towns and green roof supermarkets with beehives. Recent local projects include the new 28,000 square foot space for the Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse, which I think they're having an open house tomorrow, yep, which employed deconstructed reused material and the design of high quality resilient accessory dwelling units through a partnership with the Evanston Development Cooperative. A little tie in there. Sylvia also co-founded the ongoing District 65 Green Team for schools here in Evanston, which actually has made a lot of progress just at the school down the street, Willard. Okay, so Bruce, why don't you launch the poll? This is just a question for everyone to kind of understand the audience a little bit. Okay, here we go. Oh, hosts and panelists cannot vote. I was going to vote, but hosts and panelists cannot vote. Okay, Bruce, and do the results just pop up on the screen?
When I end polling, we have 10 of 17 that voted at this point.
Ah, got it. What's a quorum?
Right.
So.
We'll take that.
Yeah. Well, we want to get to content, so let's
okay,
see what.
All right, there you are.
Designer, a lot of homeowners. Okay, owner, other. Okay. All right. So, who's going to start? That's the one thing I didn't know. Nate, Dick, Sylvia.
What's the question?
Yeah. What do you want to talk about?
So, the first question was, the big question, right? Is I have a home in Evanston, and it's probably about 100 years old, and like, what do I do first, right? That's always the big question: is what do I do first? And let's just say, let's scenario is, I'm gonna do an addition. So, you know, I bought this house, and I have, you know, based on the area, you know, I'm going to do a small, maybe the porch, I'm going to build the porch out and do an enclosed porch and do an addition. So it's sort of what you'd call, I guess, a small addition. What would be the first thing like that you would do, knowing your house also has all these other issues, right? Like maybe you have an old furnace, maybe you have leaky windows. You know, if you're doing a moderate addition, where would you start?
Well, I'll grab that one. Yeah, you got to understand what you're starting with. So I like to say that Evanston has something like 18 decades of homes or something like that. And every decade seems to be a different way of building. And you can't just do the same answer for every one of them. So you definitely need someone to come in and do an analysis to see what you got. You know, how are your windows? What kind of insulation, if you have any insulation? A lot of homes in Evanston don't even have any. What's your mechanical system? How leaky is the house? A blower door test would be great. So that's what we like to start from, is the knowledge of, you know, what do you have, and then what do we want to move to?
And then I think I guess the next phase after you diagnose your house is plan efficiently, and then after that you deconstruct responsibly. So figure out what you're taking apart and what needs to go whether you're updating a kitchen or a bathroom, make sure that those things aren't going into landfill and everything is salvaged that you can salvage or reused on site if possible. And then buy only what you need, I think. That's kind of the general sustainability thing. It's not just in architecture, but it transcends architecture. And then reclaim what you can. And then when you're buying things, focus on local, non-toxic, certified, and as Nate mentioned, insulating and sealing, and then additionally venting properly are kind of the order of operation that I typically encourage. And then when you're changing out energy and or water consuming elements, make sure you're doing it as needed, and then get the most efficient model that you can afford.
So I would just add one more thing on that, and that is the big theory right now is to go all electric. So if we want to get rid of fossil fuel emissions, don't have them come on site. And so that's a whole chain reaction of stuff that's going to be the four things in a house that usually use natural gas, which, by the way, it's methane, it's really not natural gas, it's methane. So a cooktop, which you would then switch to an induction cooktop, a water heater, and your dryer, which would become heat pump technology, electric, and then your mechanical system. So that would either be mini split air source heat pumps or ground source geothermal, depending on your site. So that's really a key thing, is tight insulation, tight shell, and then excellent mechanical system, everything electrical. And then you look at the renewable energy aspects. And a lot of the sites here in Evanston have a ton of trees, but you can still get renewable energy from your electricity, which Citizens Greener Evanston helped get set up here in Evanston.
So we'll, you know, on that, oh, go ahead, Dick, and then I'll follow up on natural gas.
Sure, thanks, Lynn. And yeah, I think as the only non-architect on this call, I think bringing in a homeowner perspective is, I think I agree with both Nate and Sylvia, of course, but also doing your homework ahead of time, especially with your furnace, you know, all these appliances and mechanical systems that Nate and Sylvia mentioned. You know, you don't want that to go, you know, to break today and tomorrow you have an emergency, and not knowing what you have, what size, what type. I think just knowing that will help prepare you, whether it's for a renovation project or when your hot water heater dies, and knowing what is out there will help you before the plumber comes in with an emergency install. So I think those are things that one should do ahead of time, just to have a little cheat sheet of these are the major equipment, how old are they, what are they today, and that will pave a path towards electrification, as Nate mentioned.
Right. So yeah, I guess my question is, can we like how does a homeowner prepare for this? And like say, and we're moving into the decarbonization, and can you convert any typical residence to this heat pump technology? Like many houses have forced hot air. I mean, it was sort of the standard way to heat houses. But can any house move to basically a heat pump technology, or do you have to do other stuff first to get to that?
Well, you definitely have to know how energy efficient your walls are. So if you're indiscriminately leaking out air from all sources, then definitely not. And so, like Nate mentioned, getting a diagnostics of your house initially, first off, and sealing and insulating before you change over to any kind of other system. Because even though those systems are efficient, they don't run efficiently if you're leaking out air.
Right. There's definitely an order to do this, and getting that perimeter sealed up, and then making sure you have good ventilation, as Sylvia mentioned too. And then the one thing that is kind of the hidden cost in flipping over to electric is you very likely will need to upgrade your electric service, which is not cheap. So if you have 100 amp service, that will not work if you go all electric. And the critical part is the heating load that was picked up by the natural gas. So you likely will need to go to 200 amp. If you're at 200 amp, you're very likely going to need to go to 400 amp. So those are, that's a big cost, but once you do it, you're all set.
So you're making this a little scary for, I think, a lot of people. I mean, I suppose it's better to go in with, your eyes wide open. But
to add to that, I think there are small experiments people can do. Instead of replacing all your windows one winter, you can tape it up and see, did it feel better this winter? And by next winter, say, yeah, it did feel better. Let's replace the windows. Let's do the blower door test to see the leaks. But I think it's, it doesn't have to be all or nothing all at once. It's just really understanding your building. Just like if you have an ailment, you start seeing, well, what hurts, what doesn't hurt. Similarly with your house, there are ways to test things out, which I think is an important part of taking those steps.
Well, I think having a long-term plan and understanding what your systems are in your house, and then planning for changes. I agree with Dick. You don't have to change it all out automatically in one renovation. It could be phased. And so, but getting that diagnostics first, making your perimeter as efficient as possible, and then changing out as things fail in a cohesive, planned out way.
Right, master plan it and then go through it in that sequence. But there's some things you also have to keep in mind, like if you just replace the windows and you have bad insulation around it, the heat really doesn't care. It just goes right around the windows. Right. So as a system, you need to look at that, and knowing that if you do the windows and the insulation, now your mechanical system has completely changed. So you just need to keep that in mind and go, okay, when that thing goes, now I need to downsize it because you're going to need less, which is a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of these things to test out are, I like to say, are not very sexy. These are not solar panels. This is just what insulation is in between the walls, where the holes are. Mm-hmm. The contractor did a good job to sealing it off. And those are I think the early things to really get right.
Definitely, and then staying in a small home. So I think changing your mindset from continuously upgrading and building bigger and going into bigger houses, we need to change our mindset to the 1950s, 60s attitude of having just enough, and zoning our heating so is important as well. So you're not using your whole house all the time if you do have a larger house.
Right. So say I'm doing I'm not doing it. This is another scenario would be sort of, I'm not doing a major renovation. Maybe I'm just doing my kitchen, which is pretty typical, right? Maybe, but I want to use better materials. I want to build better. Can I just go to Home Depot and just buy better stuff, or do I have to go a little further afield to buy better stuff?
So Home Depot now has a fancy new website. I don't know how new it is. I've only recently discovered it. I think it's called something like Eco Options, which give you some ideas of what is out there and what's possible. EPA also has, I think if you're looking for kind of the appliances and stuff, then looking for things that are certified, as mentioned before, that are either WaterSense or Energy Star, those kind of things. So other people have, just like organic food, other people have certified them, or same thing for wood. So there are places to find those materials. What are the better list of appliances and materials, and then being able to source them as locally as you can.
So I think kitchens are an interesting thing because, you know, we talk about sustainability, but that also wraps up into resilience, but also wellness. And I think the kitchen is a great spot for wellness. So, you know, during this pandemic, a lot of things have come to the forefront. And one of them is, you know, gee, I have a tile countertop. That is terrible. All the joints and all the grunge in there and everything. You want like a perfectly smooth, you know, as seamless as possible countertop. And I just went to some place and they had a granite countertop, and everyone loves those, except you can't tell where the dirt is. So, you know, a single color, you know, all of that's really great. And then of course there's high efficiency appliances. And if you have a tight home, again, the worst thing to do is cook with natural gas, because the fumes have really nowhere really good to go, and you're pumping in tens of thousands of BTUs of exhaust. That's absolutely why you should do an induction cooktop. So there's a whole range of things. And then just real quick, the other thing with the kitchen is if the power goes out, after everyone spent all that time squirreling away all your food during the pandemic, to have to freak out that the refrigerator is going to go out of power. So, you know, again, these are all kind of good things. And if the opportunity presents itself, that would be great. You don't have to do that now. If you have a mechanical room, make sure you got enough room in there to put a battery. Yeah, that would be great.
That reminds me, I was at a friend's house. He's a contractor, and he just renovated his house. It's not in Chicago. And he had timers on the fans. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so that was an easy fix for me, because we had our fans were on off, and when you talked about ventilation, it made me realize, you know, I put timers on the fan. So now, you know, every time the fan goes on, at least it's on for 10, you know, I can change the setting 5-10 minutes. I'm getting a little bit more, you know, exhaust just sort of automatically when anyone goes in there. And that's like an easy, right? That's like a Home Depot item. Go and get a timer.
Putting that in the bathroom is the best thing, because otherwise people don't use it. And that way they know it's on for 5, 10, 20, 30 minutes, and that it'll shut off.
Yeah, reducing your mold. Really important how, particularly in bathrooms, but kitchens as well, there's so much moisture that gets built up, and it all goes right into the drywall and sits there. And if it's not vented out, it just creates mold and horrible hazard.
Okay, so question, we were just talking about, to stay on kitchens, there was a question on deconstructing kitchens, and what can you do with the stuff that's in your kitchen, and is really any of it deconstructible? And I suppose you could start with the counters and the cabinets as being the biggest chunks, yes, as opposed to the appliances.
Right. So most of your items in your kitchen are totally salvageable. A lot of times, depending on how extensive your renovation is, you could reuse your cabinets and maybe your chassis of your cabinet and just put new fronts on them. That might be the most kind of eco-friendly, low use of materials. But the Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse takes most of these things. They don't take things like hollow core doors, but your countertops, your cabinets, your appliances. And Ann Nicklin from ERW was on yesterday, and she mentioned that appliances are actually the largest, the best-selling item in the whole warehouse. So they'll definitely take all of that. And if your appliances are too old to go to Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse to get resold, then there are recycling opportunities that are available for those.
You know, one of the great things is when we're doing a renovation of a house and there's a lot of stuff, donating it to the Evanston Rebuilding Exchange, having their people come out, they get their training, and then you get a tax credit. And we've done houses where there's been a 6-figure tax credit back when they've demoed the whole house. And instead of like 2 days to demo it, it takes 3 weeks, but big deal. And just real quick, you know, the buildings account for 40% of the CO2 emissions. 11% of that is operational, and 29% is the embodied carbon in all the equipment and all the building materials. So reusing that is really, really important. Reusing the building is really important, and not tearing it down.
And also the amount of waste, construction waste is a huge portion. I don't have the figures, but huge portion of overall waste in landfill. And so diverting it in any way you can is kind of the key thing, especially older houses that have better materials. So your old growth wood and cabinetry is definitely everything that can be resold.
Yeah, funky old door hardware, and
yeah,
they don't make it like they used to. Some of it's excellent.
And never will. We'll never have that wood back again.
Right.
So I suppose we should put in the chat just the phone number for the Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse, or if you did have a project and you wanted them to come out, we need to let people know how to do that. Like, I actually don't even know how to do that. I mean, I say I was going to renovate my kitchen. We just need to make sure that people know that, you just call them up and you sort of...
They do have a great deconstruction team. And so that's their main focus, actually. Besides taking your old stuff and selling it back out to the community. But they employ folks for I think 5-month session of learning how to deconstruct. And so they do everything from kitchens to entire houses. And they come out and do that for you, and they give you an estimate and the like. So you just contact ERW. I don't have their contact information at hand. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Joel.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, and we'll probably put that on that's one of those resources that should be on the Citizens for Greener website.
Yep.
Okay.
Just to add to Sylvia's point, I think, sorry, I got so excited, I was kind of interrupting there earlier. But yeah, 50% of the domestic waste in the U.S. is construction debris.
It's huge.
It's huge. Right?
And the thing is that, sorry, go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, think of everything that we all throw out at work, at home. That's only half of it. The construction debris is the other half.
Yeah, and when you do a small project like a kitchen or bathroom, you don't really think about the amount of stuff that's coming out, especially if you have plaster walls that are often torn out, that can't go to ERW. But there's so much waste, and oftentimes when you do smaller renovations, you don't think about the waste that goes that happens there. And I really wish that the building department in Evanston and all building departments had kind of like a catch-all for letting people know whenever they're getting a building permit to look at deconstruction, because it's not something that is automatically thought of.
Yeah, and also some of that construction waste is also at new construction sites. You know, I think 15 to 20% of all materials that show up on a construction site turns into waste. You can imagine cutting lumber and cutting incorrectly, or just even cutting lumber and everything. So then having an opportunity to think modular, to think fabricated or factory built components could also help reduce waste.
Yeah, the amount of packing that goes into all the stuff that yeah, like the boxes and all the wrap.
So is it possible? This is changing tax a little bit, and to maybe to Dick. Is it possible on a renovation, on a small addition, to go modular? I mean, I've heard about modular construction for new builds, like 100%, right? So that makes sense. But like what they do at the high school, right? They kind of it's not quite prefabricated, but they more or less build the entire house and they stick it on a truck and then they stick it on a site. But say you're doing this addition, right? You're either adding you're maybe doing the typical Chicago bungalow, adding on a second floor, or you're building out the porch into a media room. Is it feasible to do that prefabricated, or still just because of all the geometry, it's just easier to do it the old-fashioned way with sticks, with 2x4s and and plywood?
That's a great question. And I think I look at it from several angles. One is, feasibility and budget. I think prefab doesn't have to be, a box that you just drop down, but could be prefabricated wall systems that one wall, one panel at a time, that alleviates some of the cutting on site and also increases performance as you think about air tightness and working with professionals to figure out, hey, not just building stick frame and doing the old fashioned way. I think we miss out on what we just talked about earlier, the performance and making sure you understand your system. You're not just adding an extension to your house, but really understanding how that affects the heating and cooling, making sure that the walls are properly insulated. But also what I've learned from building the house by Northwestern, it's expensive to hire a crane operator to come out. It was $10,000 for us to move this, thing 30 feet. So it really depends on what makes sense, but modular doesn't have to be, you drop it down and you're done. It could be pieces are modular, and it's absolutely doable. We, at EDC build with structural insulated panels. Our panels are designed on a computer. Shop drawings are sent to the factory. It's built and assembled once on site, packed, and then shipped to us. So then it's prefabricated parts, but again, it allows us to do the construction quickly, and also keeping budget and performance in mind as well.
So one aspect of that I'm a little concerned about, and I haven't really fleshed out the thinking on this 100%, but as things get more modular, there's less work for local contractors, local workers. And so just kind of balancing that, everything getting automated is semi-frightening to the workforce. And I think we want this to be like a whole citywide, everyone wins kind of thing. So just something to think about.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Nate. I think that's one of the important parts of our thinking at EDC too, is how do we, you see fancy YouTube videos on 3D printed houses, but in the end, a house isn't just four walls and a roof, right? It's a home, and who gets to live in it, who gets to build it, what ecosystems and economic sort of, just vitality we're creating. I think that's a part of this, and that's why, as a worker cooperative, it's really important for us to work with local trades. And we believe we need the performance, but we also need potentially lower skilled opportunities to come in, right? We don't need a master framing carpenter to frame our ADUs, and which we used to call coach houses, but really, 3 strong men and women could put this together. And that piece, we understand how we can hire local and do it locally. When we see a lot of ADU builders, just order it, we ship it to you, we drop it down. We really we don't see that model, all the way through. I think we really want, like Nate, you were saying, a local trades workforce that is participating in that economy.
What did you say?
And then maybe
ADU?
those, oh, sorry, go ahead, Len.
No, I was just asking what ADU was, and my kids just came home, so I'm going to mute for a second. What is ADU?
Yeah, great. ADU is the term for accessory dwelling units. So these are, and the city's launching a new guide next week. So if you go to the city's website next week, you'll see a whole webpage and a guidebook on that. But ADUs is what we used to call coach houses. Now, coach houses are one type of ADUs. These are living units that they could be attached to your house. They could be detached, like the coach house. But it really makes the homeowner, gives them more flexibility to create a housing unit for a loved one, for a renter, for an elderly parent. And that's, the city of Evanston legalized that in internal ADUs in late 2020.
So I just want to run back one quick thing about local labor.
Mhm.
We get asked periodically like, hey, let's do a radiant heated driveway. I'm like, wow, you know, the size of the boiler is the size of what you need for the house or even bigger. And I would rather take all that money and pay a guy to shovel it locally, 50 bucks, whatever it is, forever, and not have a hole in the ozone named after you. So that's the thing. Sorry.
There are ways to do that though. I remember, maybe it's not a US thing, but definitely when I worked in London, we did a couple of places where you could create energy while walking. And I can't remember what we used exactly. Could it not be solar? I mean, this is a totally
Well, Len, you're muted.
off topic, I suppose, item. And I wanted to go back to the local labor that hopefully, you know, as things get perhaps more systematized, and it's not going to be for everything, so it's still going to be a specialized thing, but we could have some folks going into deconstruction, which there's not enough. So all our demolition crews can become deconstruction crews as they used to be in the past.
Yeah. And I also think green construction jobs, whether it's deconstruction, renewable energy, you know, I think it's really strategic for our community to have, not just altruistic, it's not just good for the environment, it's good for economic development or workforce development. It's just good, period. I mean, I think President Biden has shown that by all these efforts are going to say these jobs are not going away. If we as a community have those jobs, we don't need to look farther and farther out for those workers. And we all saw what the pandemic brought to every community, right? Who are the workers, the essential workers, who are commuting in and commuting out to do this work. And I really think for Evanston and any community to be resilient going into the rest of this century and the next, it's going to be needing those green construction jobs and trades jobs.
So we have another question on hot water. Is hot water heat from an electrically powered boiler possible, cost effective, rather than totally replacing the entire radiator system? So I'm assuming, let's just say this house has got low temperature. We're going to say low temperature hot water. So just for the people in the audience, there's, you know, some buildings may have steam radiators, and other buildings may have what we call low temperature hot water radiators, and then other buildings may have just pure electric radiators. Those are the little electric baseboards. So assuming this is a low temperature hot water system, can you just swap that over from a natural gas fired boiler to an electric boiler?
I don't know that we've done that particular setup. I think the trick is going to be a really well insulated house to start with, because we typically, if we're going to go all electric, we're looking at moving very slow moving air, again with a geothermal or with a mini split. Mini splits are kind of our favorite, but these are very low temperature moving. Like, you can't leave the door open and let 20 degrees drop inside and then expect it to come back up like a gas furnace. This is like really slow moving. And so you want, you know, airlocks to get in maybe from the garage, and you definitely want a tight home. So is it possible? Yeah, I think there's probably better ways to do it. I don't know, Sylvia, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, you know, like we said at the very beginning, you kind of have to look at the entire system of the house, right? It is possible, but depends on what you're trying to heat, just like any other system.
I think the question, I'm guessing, you know, like a lot of homes in Evanston, they have an old radiator system, an old, you know, and what I had mentioned means swapping out for a forced air system, which is a totally disruptive way to do it. So maybe this is an instance where solar hot water makes sense. I mean, there's very few applications that I think makes sense for solar hot water. But maybe that would be something to tie into then an electric boiler. Electric and boiler are a word that, a combination I just don't intuitively think makes sense, but.
What about air source hot water? Is that possible
Well,
to do?
like geothermal as a byproduct can make hot water, but I'm sure it's possible. It's just not what we typically do. So I can't really speak to, as an expert on it. I don't really know.
I would take the same stance. However, you might be able to look at more efficient water radiators, water-based radiators. So instead of having the old large clunky radiator in every room, you could swap it out for a smaller baseboard system potentially, which would be more efficient.
And again, just repeating like we've been repeating, the key thing is to get that house really well insulated, and that's
Right.
going to mean also getting it well ventilated, because otherwise you're creating a problem, a big time health problem.
Yeah, but changing to an air source hot water system would at least reduce the amount of combustion that you're creating in the house. So
Sure.
one source of fossil fuels gone potentially.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we're back to air sealing and insulation. So I guess then that that follows up on the on the green jobs and the local jobs is have you guys had any success with or do you know of any, and maybe we put this on the Citizens for Greener website or something, contractors who are familiar with the detailed work that it would be to air seal, right? Because I imagine it's probably pretty specific to every different house. I mean, there may be some sort of typical places where it leaks, but I mean, have you guys had any success with either local contractors who do this, or did they sort of roll their eyes when you say, oh, I want you to come in and start sealing the house and looking at the weather stripping on the doors or stuff? I mean, what's been your experience, or with the local workforce, I should say?
Yeah, oftentimes it's the person who comes in and does the blower door test can also do the. So I've worked with contractors, local contractors who do both, who can diagnose what the house, where there's insulation, where there's missing insulation, where there's gaps because of mold or whatever it is. So diagnose the house, and then and so those are usually HERS raters, and they can oftentimes come in and do the air sealing as well. Anybody else have experience?
Yeah, and I think I think maybe it might be even worth mentioning what the blower door test is. I think
Sure.
and it's interesting that it is what it sounds like. The contractor sets up, puts a big fake door on your front door, and there's a big fan that is just blowing air out. So it's just trying to suck air in, and then he or she goes around the room, around your house, sometimes on a cold day with a thermal camera, looking at, well, where are the cold spots, where are all the air coming in, and through measuring the pressure, and they can see how leaky is your house. You can imagine if your house is really airtight, it can't really suck a lot of air out. So it knows how the pressure is building up, and that's the best way to test how airtight your house is. And we did, when Citizen of Greener Evanston had that program, we did it on my own house, and the contractor, the energy auditor was saying, your building, your house is like a ski jacket, right? You can have all the ratings in the world, but if you don't zip it up, if there are big holes, like Renee was saying, thermal energy doesn't care. It's just going to find a way in.
We did renovated the last house I was in, and we had wrapped the exterior in continuous insulation and put siding on it. We did a lot of really good things and had the blower door test, and it was abysmal, the result. And they took me over to the fireplace, the house is 1949, mid-century modern. And it was like a river of air. When that thing's blowing, you can move your hand around and see, literally feel where it's coming from. put me in front of that fireplace. I almost was blown over. It was so bad. And basically the damper was terrible. So spent some money, put a really tight one of those spring-loaded dampers. You can hear it go foomp, and it is really sealed up now. So, you know, something I kind of knew but didn't realize the magnitude of it. You really get a sense of it. And I'd encourage you to go in during the blower door test. It's really kind of fascinating. They puff smoke around, they'll see where it travels, and it's kind of neat.
Also, make sure you get a calibrated blower door test. I've learned that there's 2 different kinds. So the calibrated one has the elements on it that show the pressure that's building up and help you understand what's going on in your house a lot better than just a door with a big fan in it that sometimes people come with. So
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, just to finish up on that,
like
so they calculate the cubic volume of the building and then see how long it takes to flush it out, so they know how many air changes per hour you're having in your home.
It sounds like this is something the Evanston Rebuilding Warehouse might want to offer as a local service.
There you go.
great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for us
Again,
to
I
call
imagine that
contractors and ask for it, right? This is not sexy stuff. No one calls and say, "Hey, can I do this test?" I think the more we can call, the more then the jobs will be there. I think that's really important, because usually we're looking at, should I swap out my old Honeywell for the Nest thermostat and all this really shiny, cool stuff, but it comes down to is the attic.
Yeah, or the solar panels. People just want to go straight for the renewable energy, and you have to do so much before you can get there.
Yeah, that's the last thing.
That's the last thing. Yeah.
So how much does a typical blower door test cost on a typical single family residential home?
I want
Well,
to.
CGE used to do them for free with a what was it called? A house party. And so we don't do it anymore, or CGE doesn't do it anymore, but I think it's between, just depending on the size of your home, between $250 and $400, somewhere around there.
Exactly. I was going to say 300 or 400. Yeah.
A couple hundred.
Okay.
Well worth it, because it will. You will not believe what you learn about your house real quick.
Yeah, and then the thermal images that you get, so they should walk around not only with the smoke pen to show you where your air is moving, but also the infrared images are just phenomenal. Like you see the temperature difference. You can see the studs in your walls. It's just, the corners are usually the worst. How the corner of the house comes together, which is usually there's nothing there. So yeah, really interesting to do that.
I bought one of those infrared things that clicks on the bottom of my iPhone.
Awesome.
So,
yeah.
It's
so accessible
certified
now.
geek. I'm sorry,
does it work well?
Yeah, it's not, not as good as the $1,000 ones. I think that's like a $200 one, but you can definitely, it pinpoints, puts an X on, gives you the temperature, and then it gives you the color chart of what you're looking at. So in a pinch, it's awesome. Like to just take, I just usually carry it around in the winter. I never know when I'll need it, but it's in my
Point it
back.
at people.
Yeah.
So I think in that spirit of knowing your house, like with this, couple $100 investment, which again is not cheap, right? I mean, that's still, it is money, is create an account at ComEd and NICOR and understand your yearly, because you can download your monthly energy totals, so you can get a better picture of what's happening, and then that combined with some of this diagnostic stuff would start to give you like you said, to know your property, to know your investment.
And understand your water usage as well. I mean, energy is obviously more important, but it all fits in together.
Right, which I think we can
City of Evanston.
get that from, I know. Do they have online accounts? I don't remember if I've ever gotten my annual water usage.
They do, and
look it
they
up by
have
meter number.
They have they show you what your usage is. I don't know how accurate it is. I've been staring at it for a couple months, and I'm not sure if it's real.
Well, no, they went to the meters that you read by the street, so I think it's pretty accurate. Like we got, like a couple of years ago, I think Evanston switched out to the newer the meters where they just drive down the street and they read the information. Or at least on single family residential, they did that. So a question on mold. Oh yes, question on mold. So I guess is it necessary to remediate mold mildew before tightening, sealing, or insulating?
Absolutely.
I think that says it all right there. Yeah, if you seal up and you got mold in there, it's like you're a bad bag of cheese in your refrigerator.
Yeah, and you're spreading it all over the walls.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
So if you have water leaks in the basement, you need to look at that too, because that's going to potentially start some of that. Any water leak anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere. A lot of leaks can also happen through your roof, and that happen then the structure of your roof gets wet, and you don't see that for a long time potentially. But other than your drywall, which you see the mold can be in other places. So again, getting a professional who understands mold and how it spreads in the spores is quite important, because it is a big health issue.
And you're basically taking a house, maybe even from 2 centuries ago, and you could be converting it into something it had never been envisioned to be. And that can cause problems if you don't know what you're doing. So you got to put some thought into it.
And there are also technologies that weren't available 2 centuries ago. I think the thing that I like to talk about the most is the energy recovery ventilation system. These are smart systems that can be connected to your existing forced air furnace, but it's smart enough to replenish the stale indoor air with outdoor air, but recycles 90% of the heat on a cold day. So you get fresh air coming in, but you're not wasting heat to heat up the cold air, and vice versa. In the summer, it will use the cool air to dehumidify, cool the outdoor air before it puts it into the house. And back 2 centuries ago, people, and even still GCs today, like to say, oh, I like to build houses leaky and let it breathe. And well, you're paying for it, right? And it's not healthy. So I think there are just off the shelf, couple $100 that just, of course, you install it and it just knows what to do.
Is there a way to tell if the mold is the result, if it's a roof leak or it's condensation?
Your infrared camera might help you diagnose that. So kind of tracking it and seeing where it goes. Yeah, I mean, if it stops halfway up a wall and the top part is fine, then it might be sucking up from somewhere below, and vice versa for coming from an attic.
All right. And then there's a question on geothermal. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about geothermal and how, if you either were building a new house in Evanston or remodeling a house, if it's feasible, and I suppose based on the yard size, or sort of factors to consider for geothermal?
So, geothermal needs, what it does is it's trying to take this constant heat of about 55 degrees, about 6 feet down in the ground. And if you're out on a farm, you can go horizontally 6 feet down and it's really not a big deal. But in denser areas like what we have, you go with vertical wells. And so there's plenty of houses in Evanston actually that already have geothermal, and they drill down about 110 feet or wherever they hit bedrock. And depends on the length. There's calculations you do. Do you need 8 wells, 10 wells, 15 wells? And that can go in your front yard, your backyard. They have to space them apart so they don't suck up so much heat and, kind of burn each other out. But it is expensive. It's one of the reasons we like air source heat pump, because there's none of that. You're using the heat in the air. And even though that seems counterintuitive, when you have air conditioning running, magically you're taking hot air and getting cold air. And this is basically running it both directions. So you can take heat out of cold air, if you understand like the Kelvin scale of temperature, to minus 400 and something. At minus 20 degrees, there's still a lot of heat in the air. So it's just how efficient it is to pull that out. But then you don't have all that drilling. I don't remember if geothermal still qualifies for tax credits for the energy tax credit or not, but we've done a few geothermal. We did them back with the Green Homes for Chicago. I'm sorry, the Green Bungalow Initiative back in 2001. And we did a bunch of them, and then we just stopped doing them and converted over to the air source ones.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, Nate. Yeah.
I agree. I did a couple, probably around nine years ago, and they all needed sort of backup or additional heating in the really, really cold snaps that have been happening.
So in theory, they're more efficient than the air source heat pumps, although I don't necessarily believe that, but I've heard that. The thing that's not great is there's a lot of pump energy with all the pumping that's going on. You have 15 wells and it's, I don't know, an inch pipe, and you're pumping water down 110 feet, pumping it back up, doing that for 8 to 15 times. It's not insignificant power use. So,
and it's also a really large system in your basement.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the air source that is a much smaller system.
Yep.
And also, another point for electrification is with an air source heat pump that's powered by electricity. In Evanston, as many of us saw the announcement and got the notification, with aggregation, most residential power is coming from renewable sources. So I think our city is doing the right thing. And so then the more we convert from natural gas to electricity, that's, I would, in my mind, good enough already. And then a lot of the more additional stuff is really depending on the site, depending on your goals and budget. But as we weatherize and make your house airtight, switching parts from appliances one at a time to electric appliances and furnaces, then I think that's the path.
So just to be clear, geothermal and the ground source and the air source are both your electric options.
Sure.
Your good electric heat pump options.
Let's talk a little bit. We have 1 or 2 more minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about passive solar design and options that homeowners would have for increasing just good daylight in the winter and bad daylight, bad sun in the summer, and obviously not having any air conditioning, just opening your windows is, it may not work on the 90% relative humidity, but, we do live near the lake and, they say cooler by the lake-ish. I mean, are there options for existing houses to do that as you're sort of doing this planning? So, maybe putting in a different window, a bigger window, or what are the options for an existing house to sort of do that very passively as opposed to all this technology? And the ceiling, and we know about the ceiling, the air ceiling.
Let me jump in on that because I got my degree a long time ago with passive solar, and I think things have changed a lot. I would rather have a much tighter envelope than over worrying about that. But if you've got a big window on the south side of the house, and let's say you have a deciduous tree in front of it, then it's shaded in the summer, and then the leaves drop in the winter, and you get some nice sun coming in. That's great. There's no harm in that. It's just, I don't want to deep dive too much, but I think you're much better served worrying about the insulation. But one interesting thing you can do is if you're replacing your windows, there's a coating on the windows, a solar heat gain coefficient that shows up. And you can tune that for different orientations of glass. And that by itself does a tremendous amount for almost zero cost when you order the windows. If you're just smart about that number, the solar heat gain coefficient, you can do some pretty good efficiency things. So that's, that would be my thought. I like even this building behind me, we're going to pick up some good solar on here, and there's some shading built into it and everything, but it's I would much more prefer the insulation and the tightness, air sealing.
This doesn't have to do with passive solar, but when we're talking about windows and putting coatings on it, no matter how small that window is, remember to put bird-friendly it's not a panel, it's just in an infrared glazing that you ask in the specification to prevent birds from hitting your windows. So quite important. But on the passive solar side of things, light shelves also work great. So creating shading in the main portion of your, I'll just point to your pieces of your building behind you. But yeah, so part of the sun coming down hits that light shelf, which is just a shading device on the outside, shades the main portion, and reflects light back up into the ceiling, creating better lighting further deeper into your building.
And along with windows, skylights that are operable are really a good thing. If you can locate an operable skylight at the top of your stairs, you'll get great natural ventilation through the whole house. So there's a lot of days in the year where that would be excellent to have, especially right before you go to bed or something, to kind of cool the house down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think windows, and we've all been in the sun where we feel how much heat comes through. So without the low E coating, and sometimes, with existing homes, just really thinking about your window treatment. Are you putting in, are you drawing the curtains or the shades when it's sunny? Because that does heat up your house, right? And especially if it's on the west or east, depending on the time of the day. It doesn't have to be a physical structure yet. It could be, I think window treatments, shades, blinds can help as well.
Okay. Well, we're sort of at the end of the time. I think people are probably, for the whole morning, if they've been for all three, they're probably pretty hungry. I don't know I think Rachel dropped off. So Bruce, do we just end this? Is that sort of what we do?
Can I just, because one of your questions that you had asked before the session was sort of your main call to action for the audience, and I've thought about it, and was thinking that even though we're saying all this stuff, and seal and stuff, your individual impact, from what I learned in a recent podcast that I watched, is 0.0000003%, 9 zeros and then a 3 at the end. It's extremely minute. And so what I think is, in addition to doing all you can to make your home as decarbonized and efficient and healthy and comfortable, I think it's also talking to other people and creating a movement. So the things that you do in your own home, talk to people as much as possible, building a community momentum through information and inspiration to get other people excited about doing these sort of non-sexy but really important things. And sort of anyone can touch up on this. And even if you rent, there are things that you can do. If you own your own home, there's things you can do. If you're low income, there's opportunities there as well, just reaching out to the right people and building that momentum through discussion and understanding of why this is so important.
Right, and because we talked about projects and additions are expensive and projects are expensive, but I'm sort of handy and I go to Home Depot and Lowe's, and there's a lot of people shopping for a lot of building materials. And I know they're not all doing 100 square foot additions, and they're not adding second floors to their houses, but they're certainly doing something, because there's a lot of people buying a lot of stuff: 2x4s, plywood, drywall, paint. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's just very small stuff, and it seems like how do you chip away at the iceberg with all that small stuff, with a gallon of paint at a time, a tube of caulk, a window shade.
Yeah, well, you got a fork in the road. Think about it and make the right decision.
Yeah.
And then tell your neighbor about it.
Yeah. Well, and also I think you've inspired us to sort of do a know your home checklist. I think that's an item that we can help prepare people so they could do their homework, so they can be prepared for when the furnace goes, which is always going to happen on a Sunday night at 5 o'clock, or when the water heater Good, we've all been there. Water heater goes out. You're like, just give me one. I don't care what it is. I need one now. I've got
Gotta
like
have
3
a
kids at
plan.
home. Have a plan.
Yeah.
Okay.